In this lesson, we're going to look at 10.2 extension. We have been graphing things in standard form, but if you'll notice the first problem, that is not in standard form. You will also notice that it's factored. And at this point, the only way you know how to graph a quadratic is from standard form. So probably what you would want to do is to say y equals, and you would FOIL that. And if you FOIL that, it will clean up to x squared minus x minus 6. Now that you know how to graph a quadratic, you would say a equals 1, b equals -1, and c equals -6. You would need to find your axis of symmetry, which is negative b over 2a. So it'll be -1 over 2 times 1, which is 1/2. And if we were graphing that axis of symmetry, we would draw our imaginary vertical line straight down. And then we would, of course, make our table. And this is time consuming, but that's the way that we would do it. If you have a graphing calculator, your graphing calculator would, of course, help you generate your table. However, I already have the table complete. So the vertex, when I plug it in, and I will show you how I'm going to do that, because I'm going to do it with the calculator, I'm going to take that 0.5 and I'm going to plug it in. So I have 0.5 squared minus 0.5 minus 6. And that gives me -6.25. And then the calculator will actually tell me my table. And you'll notice there's no symmetry because that vertex is a decimal. But I can pick up my other points from the table on my calculator. So then we would graph it. So we would go -1, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 would be on this side as well, because it's going to be 2, 4. Then we would graph 0, 6, and then we would come over here and do the 6, and then we'd graph our 0.25. And you notice we're not really getting a good picture. So if I look back at my table, I see the -2, 0, and I see the 3, 0. So I'm actually going to go ahead and plot those, and that's my parabola. Now, there's nothing wrong with that method, but I need for you to make kind of a discovery here. It says, what do you notice about the graph above related to the equation? And I'm talking about this equation. Well, hopefully you see that this right here and this right here kind of is a little opposite than your equation. This is an x-intercept of -2, and this is an x-intercept of 3. And if you look up here, you'll see +2 and -3. So what made them cancel out? Like, what made them change signs? Well, if you recall, it was the zero product property. So if we replace y with 0, we can apply the zero product property. So x equals -2 and x equals 3. So what's interesting with this is we can graph a quadratic equation different, okay? And there's a shortcut, and this shortcut is called intercept form. And that's when it's factored. Because if you notice, this equation started out factor. So we can avoid all of this work if we know how to do it with intercepts. So let's go through what intercept form is. So I need you to write down y equals a times x minus p times x minus q. Now this right here is a typo. I need you to change that to p and q. And if you notice, this has been a standard form quadratic that we have factored. The p and the q are representing the intercepts. And there's 4 easy steps. You find and plot your intercepts. Then you do the average between the intercepts. You graph your axis of symmetry, and you graph it after you plug in your axis of symmetry. So let me show you how quick and easy this can be. Step 1 says find and plot your intercepts. Well, we know to use the zero product property, which I have already showed you in number 1. This is the same problem as number 1. We're just going to graph it differently. So this intercept is -2, this intercept is 3. Find and plot them, -2 to 3. And here comes the easy part. Find and plot the vertex and the axis of symmetry. Well, look at our intercepts. By the nature of a parabola, we know the axis of symmetry has to be in the middle. Well, how do you find the middle? Well, you can count, but the easiest way to think of it is just an average. Kind of like if you have two test grades and you want to find the middle, you add them up and divide by 2. Same thing here. You add them up, divide by 2. Now notice what happens. I get that 1/2 again, and remember that that was our axis of symmetry. So I'm going to draw it in again. And now look, we have an axis of symmetry, we have the intercepts. The only thing we need is that vertex. So how can we find that? Well, we plug in the 1/2 to the original equation. Now you can do this mental math, or I know you don't like using mental math. You like your calculator. So I'm just going to say, okay, 0.5 plus 2 times 0.5 minus 3, and I get negative 6.25. So that means my vertex is negative 6.25. So all I do is go to 1/2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.25, and I know that it's going to be a U, not a V, and I graph my parabola. So it's so much quicker, but there is a catch. Why would you not be able to use this method? Well, for one, if the equation is not factored, or 2, if it doesn't touch the x-axis 2 times. So flip your paper over. Okay, so now that you have your paper flipped over, you will notice 3 and 4 are factored. So you're ready to do your 3 steps. Find the intercepts, find the middle, plot. Same thing with 4. However, I do want to skip down to number 5 and number 6 because you will notice they are not factored. So I would like to do number 5 with you. I'm going to factor it, and I can factor that with the greatest common factor. Then I can factor it again, x plus 2, x minus 2, because that is difference of squares. And now that is my new equation, and now it's in intercept form. And remember, that comes from the equation being factored. So my 2 intercepts, one will be negative 2, one will be 2. Well, this is an easy one to find the middle because, of course, the middle would be 0. So there's my axis of symmetry. So my x is 0. And then I just simply plug it back in, and I'm going to plug it back in here because it's the easiest. So that cancels out, and I have 8. So my vertex will be 0, negative 8. So I just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And there's my parabola. Notice that it's stretched out. The A right there is stretching it out. And it's much quicker if this method will work. Now, pause the video and work number 3, number 4, and number 6. Okay, now in checking number 3, make sure that you have your vertex of 2, 9. It's flipped over because of that negative. On number 4, your vertex is negative 3, negative 8. Your intercepts was negative 7 and 1. We did 5 together, and then number 6, your vertex is negative 1, negative 9. There it is. If you have any questions, please see me during flex time or during class.